What do you think about women who maybe are dating around and they can't find anybody they like?
There's a fine line between self-sabotage and having high standards, right?
I love that.
One is like, okay, I'm going to find something wrong with every person that I meet. Or it's, and sometimes we actually say like, hey, this is a deal breaker for me. I'm just standing up for what I want. But if you see, okay, I've gone out with a multitude of humans and I just keep finding anything wrong with them, then it's time to turn inward and see like, hey, is there some parts of me that believe love is not safe? Is there parts of me that believe men will hurt me? Am I maybe sabotaging potential partners because of that?
Is there a situation when you should lower your standards? Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Bougie Best Friend Podcast. I'm your host, Coco, aka Kornelia Slunsky, and I have an episode today that is going to help you with your mental health and your relationships. I interviewed Jenny Meinen, who is a psychologist and mental health coach, and this episode is focused on relationships, healing, attachment styles, getting over situations that don't really serve you. And I love bringing on people on the show who can help your mental health, honestly, because that is the most important thing we need to take care of today. I have a review that I would like to read, if you don't mind, because I just love getting your reviews and just make me so happy. This comes from, this username is XU Drawers. Did I read this right? XU Draws. Okay, that's the username. The title is So Genuine. I love how straightforward and genuine she is. Her point of view is something all women need to hear. Thank you. I love reading your reviews and they mean the absolute world. I invite you to send this episode to anybody who would benefit from it. You know, your friend who's going through a shitty situation right now, send this episode to her. Maybe it's going to help her. Okay. Without further ado, let's now hear from Jenny. Jenny, welcome to Bougie Best Friend Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Coco. I'm really excited for today.
Today, we're going to talk about self-love, about getting over a breakup, about owning your power back, and all these things that a lot of women go through on a daily basis when, they're going through these changes in their lives. So I'm really excited to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm super excited to be part of this. I love your podcast. I love your Instagram. It's so inspiring and I love that we're in the same realm. So for everyone who does not know me, my name is Jenny Meinen. I currently live in Southern California in Los Angeles, but I am from Germany. And yeah, I made it my life mission to help women and empower women in life, love, and self-love, and in mindset. And I've been doing this for quite a few years. I started to work completely independently by myself, I think around 3-4 years at this point. Before that, I was working also in companies and supporting clients with mental health and relationships. And yeah, I'm super passionate about this. I love working with women in one-on-one, but I also love a group and masterminds and to create just a very loving, supportive climate for women that are looking for like-minded souls to be on this journey. So yeah.
So how did you get into this field? Why did you want to start this process? I mean, helping women around the world.
Oh, that's a good question. I wanted to start, I think it started for me as a teenager, having parents that were, like separating and having all these challenges that we experience as teenage girls, wanting to understand my mind and emotions better. Because I had a hard time understanding what it meant for me and how it will go for me if I just let them run free. And if I love saying having an unsupervised mind. And also I got so much into learning about attachment theory. So one of my thesis was very focused on different attachment styles and ways how we learn to receive and give love throughout our lives. And I always thought it was fascinating how the brain works, how we are in relationships, how we attach to someone. So that's how I got into it.
Let's talk about attachment styles. For somebody who doesn't know anything about attachment styles, what they are and how many do we have? Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah. So we have 4 different attachment styles. depending on how intense you want to get. But overall, you can group attachment styles in a secure attachment style and in an insecure attachment style. And those insecure attachment styles are an avoidant attachment style, an anxious attachment style, and an avoided anxious attachment style, or also called a disorganized attachment style as well. So it depends on how much we go in depth there. But to make it a little easier, I'm going to just talk about the ones that are the most common today. But yeah, when we talk about a safe attachment style, you have most likely learned and grew up in an environment where love was predictable and readily available for you. So you learned when you were starting to explore the world, if we go back to the basics, okay, if I come back, someone's going to be there to love and take care of me because you're a child, so you're dependent on the care of others. So it's safe for you to explore the world, to be independent, to be, self-actualize yourself and grow up because it's reliable. It's not depending on if you succeed or not, or what your values that you're bringing to the table, even as a child.
So that's the secure attachment style.
That is the secure attachment style.
So basically, we grow up feeling secure and loved, and that's how we later on attach to people. For somebody who maybe, I have a lot of international people, so for somebody who doesn't understand the word attachment styles, it's basically the way you, actually, why don't you tell us?
Yeah. So attachment styles are the way we learn to give and receive love and how we attach to another person in a relationship. So that doesn't only mean romantic relationships, but also in relationship to your friends, to your friendships, even in your work though, even in the way you approach things. So you have a certain attachment and, it translates, and that's why it's so super awesome to work with attachment style. And I do that a lot with clients once you figure out where and how you learned. And the cool thing is, I'm going to talk about the more insecure attachment styles in a second, is you can transform your attachment style. So you're never doomed to just have one attachment for the rest of your life if you are putting the conscious work in. However, it takes a lot of self-awareness and work to get to that point. So it can also be that you learn to be a very securely attached person and you had a great family, and then you have a first relationship and that person cheats on you 5 times and betrays you, and all of a sudden your whole view of attachment and love and security is thrown overboard, and it takes time for you to rebuild that, right? So it's not like you have one attachment style and then it will prevent you from getting hurt for the rest of your life if you are secure. However, it could also be that you have built such a secure attachment that if someone cheats on you, don't internalize it and make it mean something about you, but rather about that person, and it bounces off, if that makes sense. So it can go many ways. And the 2 other attachment styles that are very common are the anxious attachment style, where we are more afraid that the love that we're giving someone is reciprocated. So what we do is we try to find ways to reassure that we are being loved by someone over and over again, right? So that could be by, you see that in dating stages, when you overtext, when you overthink if they like you, if you want to make sure you're on the same boat, if you're like, a little anxious.
I would call that needy.
Yeah, exactly. In some ways, just like needing, as you said, needing the reassurance that someone is going to be reliable and loving towards you, because you don't know if you're going to be loved. And that goes back to like having lower self-worth, right? And thinking like, ooh, like I'm not sure if I'm worthy of love. That's often, by the way, subconscious.
Let's stay here for a second when it comes to the anxious attachment style, aka needy, like I called it. If somebody is aware that they are anxious or they constantly need that reassurance, what can they do to get out of their head? How can somebody stop being so needy and attached?
That's a great question, by the way. There's a few things. First of all, when you are dating, it is so important, and a lot of people that have an anxious attachment style love putting themselves all in all their world surrounded by that one person, right? They neglect their friendships. They stop being, active within their self, taking care of themselves. And I think the number one important thing is that you don't lose your hobbies, your friends, and your habits, right? So your whole orbit is not just around your relationship, right? That's just a piece of the cake. So when you have this tendency, I want you to always remember that you can focus on yourself. You can go inside and you still have your world. Okay. And then another tool that's really helpful is creating more awareness. Okay. Learning how to respond versus how to react. And what I mean by that is when you see yourself getting worked up, or as you said, like over delivering and asking and being pushy in some ways, instead of reacting on that impulse that you have, we got to learn how to just observe. Again, self-awareness, like, I see my brain, like he said he's going to the gym and it's been 5 hours and like no one goes to the gym that long. I'm going to call him and he didn't answer after 3 hours. Okay. So like 100% he's seeing someone else, right? So let's say your brain is jumping to that conclusion instead of just running behind every single impulse that you have, like an unsupervised puppy. Notice
That's a great comparison.
Right? Like the mind is like an unsupervised puppy if you don't train it.
Yeah.
See that impulse, right? And like be present with, be like, ooh, interesting. Take some time to just write it out before you just,
I love this unsupervised puppy. I don't know why, but I always have dog comparisons because I'm such a big dog lover. And this like unsupervised puppy, I'm actually going to use this whenever I feel like my brain is like scatterbrain. I'm going to be like, yo, puppy, sit down. Lay
I love that.
Or something. Yes.
Lay down. Right. But that's a great analogy because it shows how you have to train your mind. Right? Dogs can be amazing, like calm and trained, but you need to train them. If you don't, they're just go crazy. Just like your mind, if you have it unsupervised, right? That's why the mindset work is so important.
So your advice when somebody is going through, let's say, a needy episode, they should do what?
First of all, focus on yourself. Wake up. See where you've been overextending yourself, overgiving, trying to make it work for other people or that person that you're with, and focus on yourself. What are your hobbies? What are the things you enjoy the most? Go out with your girlfriends, like have a good time. Focus on yourself, expand your business. So first of all, focus on yourself, right? Get grounded. Second of all, become more self-aware of your patterns and learn how to respond versus to react. And take out your journal or put on the notes on your phone. Write it out. Oh my God, I feel like he wants to see someone else because he's been gone for 5 hours and he didn't answer his phone. I'm overthinking it. Write it out. If you see it, it's easier for your brain to find a logical argument against it, right? And then you say, okay, what are arguments that speak against this? Right? I call this cognitive reframing, and it's hard. It's like such a tool you have to learn in depth. But this is a good way where you can start on your own, where it's like, okay, I see this. What are arguments against this? Well, we are in a loving relationship and he brought me flowers yesterday and he said, I love you before he left the house. And we are on good terms. And why would he meet someone if he wants to be with me? So just find reasons to tell your brain, okay, maybe I'm reacting out of past hurt. And it's, like past insecurities or things that I'm assuming that are in the past though, versus in the present moment.
Okay. You said something really interesting. You maybe got hurt in the past. A lot of people had, at least the girls who were writing to me, they had a lot of bad relationships and guys would treat them like shit. And they have issues in a new relationship. Maybe their new partner didn't show any reason for them not to trust them, but they are still kind of reliving their past. Is there something you can say? I know it's, it takes a lot of, as we said, self-work and self-awareness and all of those things, but what can they do today? So let's say somebody is super insecure about their boyfriend today. Their boyfriend didn't do anything wrong, but they just how can they get snap back?
Speak to someone. just don't go with it and run with it. Snap back, as I said, through like, okay, it might be a mental health professional, right? That's always, as you said, great to start the self-work, to talk to someone who can help you to reframe your thoughts. But even if it's with a girlfriend, right? Be like, oh my God, I'm feeling so anxious right now, girl. Like, I just need 10 minutes to rant about this and talk to you to it. So find someone.
I just want to say it's very important to talk to a girlfriend that's actually going to give you good advice, because I spoke about this many times on my podcast. I feel like a lot of people have friends who give them bad advice. It's difficult because when I had a really bad relationship at some point, and my friends were giving me bad advice. So I speak from my own experience. Like they would tell me, oh, it's fine. Like there's worse guys out there. Oh, it's not big. It's not a big deal. Like you're overreacting. They would almost gaslight me into, thinking that something is wrong. So that's why I always just like to point that out, that, try to talk to somebody whose advice and whose life you like.
Yeah. And I think you have a very good point there. That's why my first choice would always be learning the tools to actually overall prevent this overthinking and this anxiety in a relationship, by having a therapist, by having a coach, by joining a women's cycle. So like a circle, those things help you really to be in an environment that fosters growth. Right. So you're absolutely right. You should see who your friends are that you ask for advice. Another thing that can help too, if you just don't want to involve anybody else, is open up a voice memo and rant. I do this all the time. I just go like, I'm so freaking mad. This upsets me. Like, why the hell is this? Like, just let it all out. Because again, like, you have an emotional experience, and if you don't move through it and you push it down, it just brews in resentment, right?
I love this. So, I never thought about doing a voice note of me just like ranting.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I think that, we covered anxious attachment style. We covered secure, right? Next is avoidant.
Yes. So an avoidant attachment style is often predominantly men, but I do see it in women too. And I used to be more avoidant in my attachment as well when I was younger. An avoidant attachment style is you're afraid to let people in. You do the opposite of the anxious attachment style. You try to not get too close to someone because you're afraid they'll hurt you. It doesn't really always express in that way. You just sometimes think, oh, I just don't want to commit, or like, I want to be single, or I like to just do my own thing. But
I like to be single. Yeah, I like to be in control.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah.
But a lot of that is and they're absolutely legitimate in some cases. In some cases, deep down want to be with someone, but they're afraid to attach themselves to someone that would maybe hurt them. So when we're avoidant, we weren't used to having someone be there for us and be available. So instead of latching on to whatever they can get, they took a step back and was like, well, my needs are not going to get met anyway, so I'm just going to do my own thing and be hyper independent. Right? And that's often very, very normal and avoidant attachment style. So when you have an attachment style that is avoided, it's all about learning how to build trust. It's about taking baby steps that don't overwhelm you when you're committing to someone. It's learning that it's also okay to be vulnerable, right? They often have this huge lack of being vulnerable in relationships in general.
Is there another one? Is there another attachment style?
So a disorganized attachment style is less likely. This is an attachment style that's often when children were abused, or went through a lot of foster homes, or had extremely unpredictable caregivers. So knowing like they don't know how to trust someone in terms of they'll just go all in, like the typical person that will just trust someone that has the candy on the van, right? So like disorganized means like, over trusting, but then pulling back, right? So that can happen too. And so there's when you have an avoidant, avoidant anxious attachment style mixed, you can have certain signs of disorganized because it's a mixture of both, but the disorganized attachment style is way more extreme, if that makes sense.
You said that men mostly have an avoidant attachment style. Why is that? I mean, we always hear those stories that, he doesn't want to commit and I really wanted to commit. And I feel like it all comes down to the way we grew up. And it's like women need to find their missing piece. They need to find their soulmate, blah, blah, blah. And you never really see a movie where they're telling a guy, oh, you need to find your soulmate. It's like, you need to crush it. You need to make it. You need to, have $1 million by tomorrow.
Yeah. I think men there's a very good point on what you're saying. I think men tend to be more avoidant in their attachment style too, because as you said, they're societally not as primed to be in commitment, right? As you said, like career is more prioritized. There's no time pressure. There's, you want to, have fun and just go out with as many women as you can, right? So they kind of take out this like very instinctively hunting role, right? But hunting women in terms of not to hunt them down for commitment and create a safe environment, but more like, I don't want to be held down. Exactly. It's interesting though. I'd love to look into a study and what it says too, but there's definitely primarily men that have avoidant attachment styles.
Something I learned recently is the way women have quote unquote biological clock and we are rushing into getting married by the age of 30, or we have these ideas of what our life is supposed to look like by a certain age. Guys have a career clock or like a success clock because when they are over the age of 31 to 35, it's like, you're not a man if you didn't make it. And I just found that very interesting that we both have some kind of imaginary clock that basically society just put onto us. What do you think about that?
I think consciously unearthing and unlearning societal expectations should be one of the number one priorities of things we learn and do in life.
There should be a class in school, unlearn society's, bullshit rules.
Absolutely. You're so right. I think, I now work on this, a lot with clients when we're working on like alignment and being authentically yourself. Especially women, this is the number one thing we get instilled is being the good girl, right? So we learn, that's why so many are people pleasers, because we learn, like if I'm being a good girl and I listen and I perform well and I do a good job, then I get love and attention or like praise, right? And when we're young, we depend on it. You're not like an independent child. It's like, I love myself and I don't, like you're a child, you're dependent on others, literally. So you learn and embody that, okay, when I'm good to others and when I take care of others' needs first, then I'm gonna be safe. And the same is with like when you want to cry or be upset or all those things. And they're like, good girls don't do that. They don't cry. Chin up, like keep it together. So there's a lot of this, okay. So if I swallow down my emotions, you learn subconsciously. And again, like 95% of what you're doing in life is subconsciously, right? Led by what you learned and your subconscious built in your childhood. So you learn, okay, so if I just push this down, it's good because then people will like me, right? If I do them a favor, even though I'm tired, they will like me, right? And my survival is guaranteed.
It's crazy. We were taught our entire life to be the good girl and to just please everybody else around us. And I don't know why. I really don't understand why women were always taught to be like, so selfless, or you need to, care for everyone. Like we're all this, I don't know, like Messiah on the world. Like we just need to please everybody.
Yeah.
You mentioned behavior that needs to be unlearned. So if somebody is aware that they have these, would you call this limiting beliefs or?
Limiting beliefs in terms of if it's a belief that doesn't serve us and like holds us back? Absolutely. Yeah. So there's limiting beliefs. It's funny though. I love being careful with how I phrase them because I promise you in most cases, people don't know what their limiting beliefs are. So if you just say belief,
I 100%. You're so right. You're so right. Okay, let's first explain what are limiting beliefs in general. And then if you can give us some examples of limiting beliefs.
Yes. So limiting beliefs are beliefs that we put up on us that tell us how we predict the world, right? However, that are limiting to us and impact us and our goals negatively. A good example for a limiting belief would be all men in my city are trash. Or there's only, like commitment folks living in the city, something like that, right? So it's a limiting belief because the problem is we are our own self-fulfilling prophecy. So you want to be right? You want to prove, even though you're not aware, you can say, of course, no, I want a relationship. I don't want that to be true. But our consciousness is only, we can only take in so much. There's so much going on. So you're going to go through the world with your beliefs, limiting or not. You're going to just try to predict everything in your environment because that means you're safe, right? As long as you can predict what's going on in your environment, great. You're going to be safe. That's your survival instinct. So even if it's a bad limiting belief, right? You can go on a date and be like, well, see, that didn't work out. I told you all men are trash, right? And then you just go in this perpetual cycle of, like making that your truth. Where at the other point, it's not the truth, right? You see your friends or you see other people and they found great men in that city. And it's unrelated to your personal belief. However, you think that's just an absolute truth, although it's just a thought or a limiting belief.
I get this asked all the time on my Wowo Coco dues when girls are like, I'm going on dates, date after date after date, and nothing is really clicking, or I don't like anybody, or as you just said, all men are trash. I'm just attracting these losers or whatever they're saying. If somebody comes to you with that kind of situation, what would you tell them?
I would really work on unearthing where that belief is coming from and helping. So I love working from an empowered approach. I know it's a touchy subject when we talk about victim mentality. And I know some people have had some
victim mentalities.
Yeah,
I can't stand it.
had some hard things happening in their life. But the problem is you can't be the creator of your life if you continuously blame outer circumstances, people, and situations for your experience in life. So I love working on helping women understand, okay, like how can this experience that I had be for the better, right? I learned how to raise my standards after this relationship. I potentially, I'm better at reading green and red flags. I'm better in understanding and communicating what I need and what my boundaries are in a relationship, right? And how, saying like, oh, all guys, as you said, like the example of all guys, they always ask me to like come over after the third date, or et cetera, et cetera. I was like, do you let them? Like, how do you communicate with them? How do you, or do you demand respect in your communication, or do you just let them push your boundaries until you're just sick of it over and over again?
Yeah, I have to just 100% agree with you here. When women come to me and they're like, oh, this guy keeps on doing this and he keeps on doing this and this. I'm like, but why are you letting him? Why are you still there? Why do you're like, this guy only calls me for a booty call. So, but why are you going? Like you are in control of your time and obviously your body. So you don't have to go see that person who's obviously disrespecting you. Maybe he doesn't even think that he's disrespecting you. Maybe you never even talked about it. And I feel like a lot of women are, not women, men too, but a lot of people are afraid to say what they want because they're afraid they're going to turn off that person or they're going to lose them. But at the same time, if you say what you're feeling or if you express your needs and they run away, they're obviously not meant for you.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think about women who maybe just like are dating around and they can't find anybody they like? What can they do internally to maybe work on themselves? Because I feel like you can always find something interesting about someone. You don't have to necessarily date them and fall madly in love, but I don't know. I always find it interesting that the girls are like, I just don't like anyone.
So this is a really interesting topic and question because it can have multiple, so let's say this, there's a fine line between self-sabotage and having high standards.
I
right?
love that.
There's a big difference. One is like, okay, I'm going to find something wrong with every person that I meet, right? And not even give them a chance. Or it's, and sometimes we actually say like, hey, this is a deal breaker for me. I'm just standing up for what I want. But if you see, okay, I've gone out with a multitude of humans and I just keep finding anything wrong with them, then it's time to turn inward and see like, hey, is there some parts of me that believe love is not safe? Is there parts of me that believe men will hurt me? And because, again, limiting belief, deep-rooted, often unaware, am I maybe sabotaging potential partners because of that?
You mentioned there's a fine line between self-sabotage and high standards. A few questions here when it comes to standards. We were often told, me included, throughout my life, that my standards are too high or that I'm asking for too much. The common answer to that is you're just talking to the wrong person. There's another person who's going to raise up to your standards. And I 100% agree. But is there a situation when you should lower your standards?
That's a good question. I don't think you should ever lower your standards or compromise your values for a person. However, I think it's very beneficial to go on a deep dive of what your standards are and why your standards are what your standards are, right? So if you see it's something that you're using, again, to protect yourself and say, oh, no man can ever, reach that standard, then you might just have an unrealistic standard, right? Again, that's just...
Go ahead.
That's more for, I saw someone saying like, oh, before I go on a first date, you're going to have to pay me $50 for gas. You're going to have to pay for a clothing haul. You're going to have to pay for my toes to be done. And my hair, I was like, and if you don't fit in that narrative, then you're just not for me. Where it's like,
that's the standard, I guess.
That's the standard, I guess. But hey, if you're out there trying to date someone for, let's say, 3 years and that's your requirement, right? Maybe it's like, oh, okay, like maybe I'm missing out on the person that I could genuinely connect with and be loving and have a good relationship with. But I'm so fixated on something superficial in that moment.
Okay, something came to my mind as you were saying this. It's like when women say, I only date blonde guys or black hair guys, or you are creating this. And I obviously understand we all have a type and you need to be attracted to your partner. But having these, they're not even standards. They're just like, you're just trying to be stubborn about something. I don't know. Like my boyfriend is 1 year or 2 years older than me. And when obviously we're together now for a long time, we love each other very much. But before we started dating, I was like, I'm never going to date a guy who's like close to my age. I need to date somebody who's like, much older. That was mine. Like, I'm not going to take, nobody that's my age is going to be interesting. And obviously he was very interesting and he continues to be very interesting. So that was just an imaginary thing that I had in my mind.
I think, the number one most important thing is, or advice that I have for ladies, like looking to find love and connecting with their soulmate potentially, is really focusing on how they make you feel and if their actions match their words versus anything else. How do they make they feel? Like when you do this list of who you want to be with and who is your future partner versus he has to have blonde hair, he has to be 6'5", he has to be this and this and this. How about you focus on how they make you feel and how you feel about them? You could totally put down like, I'm deeply attracted to them. But not, as you said, like being very specific might be in your way with those things. But like, yeah, I'm very attracted to them. They treat me with love and respect. We connect on a level so deeply how I've never connected with someone else. And they make me feel loved, heard, and seen, right? And they always follow through with what they promise. So like those things are so much more important, I believe, than they have to be 6'6", blonde hair, and all of that. Of course, it's a bonus when it comes to top.
Yeah. You know what else I think? It's like we all have these lists, but you need to think about, where did these lists got you this far? Like you were dating your type over and over again, I guess. And obviously, if you're currently dating and trying to find a new partner, you're obviously not really satisfied with your list. So maybe try to adjust your list a little bit. Something is obviously not working.
Yeah.
I want to talk about rejection and when maybe we start dating somebody and then they ghost us or they are just not. And you know that you don't really care about that person as much, but rejection still hurts a lot. What is it though? Is it our ego? What is it?
Oh, that's such a great topic. There's so much to that though. So it always goes back to the feeling of being afraid to be abandoned, right? In a way, when someone rejects us, they abandon us, right? And it can trigger abandonment wounds. And especially if we haven't worked through those abandonment wounds, we take them personal. We tie our self-worth to how someone treated us, right? In a dating scenario. And we lose sight of the fact that everyone has their individual personality and agenda, and it's often unrelated to you as a person. And my number one tip for everybody to learn how to handle rejection is learning how to sit with uncomfortable emotions. It's tricky. It's a skill we got to learn. We're so taught that we have to avoid negative emotions, right? Oh, if you feel bad, just go out or do this or have a glass of wine, or, you get all these coping mechanisms, often unhealthy coping mechanisms to do when an uncomfortable emotion comes up. But the more you learn to sit with it, let's say you feel rejected, and instead of, I have to go out and like prove my worth by guys hitting on me or like going, like all of that, where it's like, oh, can I see this feeling coming up right now? And just be present with it. And see that it's an energy emotion that dissolves in my body if I'm just present with them and I breathe through it and I work through it cognitively afterwards. Don't try to intellectualize everything in the very moment it comes up for you.
Okay, so let's say we have a situation like that and we realize that we're just sitting with the feeling, but the feeling sucks, like the feeling hurts, and we don't see a solution at that very moment. Then what?
Then in that very moment, and we don't see a solution, we just sit with it. We just accept the fact that we're human beings and we're meant to experience a wide range of emotions and experiences, not only the positive, and reminding yourself there's yin and yang. There's no good without bad. Is there any emotion that you've had that you haven't got over?
I got over everything.
we get over everything, even if it doesn't feel like that in the moment. So reminding yourself in that moment, like as cheesy as it sounds, the classic, this too shall pass. It will pass. It will. Remind yourself that it's okay, that you're human. You're not supposed to be perfect all the time or happy. Like you get to just be a sad bitch for a day. It's okay. Or a week or however you need. But like you get to go through those phases in order to rebirth yourself over and over again and step into that more empowered and beautiful, strong version of yourself. That's part of the process. You won't only have, butterflies and sunshine. You need rain, right? In order to grow, like the flower needs rain and sunshine.
I love that. What is self-love to you?
Self-love to me is having a deep understanding of ourselves, being kind to ourselves, putting ourselves before others, and learning that self-love is not only the good parts, right? The taking a bubble bath and doing self-care and, standing up for yourself, like being present with yourself, but also doing the hard work. Self-love entails like learning how to reframe your thoughts, feeling uncomfortable emotions, setting boundaries when it's needed, right? All when we feel anxious, right? To set a boundary, for example. So self-love for me is like doing the fun and the not so fun work for yourself.
If somebody is really crushed right now, they're going through a horrible phase, maybe it's about their career, maybe it's about their relationship, their family, they just feel like they're rock bottom. How do they even start on that self-love journey? Because they don't even see the light at all. What would be your first step?
My first step would be to find a support system. It's so hard sometimes to pull ourselves out of a dark place And that's okay. We're humans, right? So it doesn't matter if you have the funds to have a therapist, right? Or a coach, or if you just join a free Facebook group of ladies going through a hard time, or, like there's so many free resources as well that can support you. So
or
really,
Bougie Bestie community. We have a group and girls talk to each other all the time.
Great. There you go. So
joining resources.
Joining that community. Yeah, I have that too. I have a program called the Inner Goddess Collective, and it's beautiful. There's women that are, like healing on their journey. And so having a support system that is there for you is super important. And then the second thing is learning to do small steps. You're not supposed to, like life, you get better in life 1% every single day. You'll be so much further than if you're just waiting for that 100% all one day to just show up, right? So if you're pulling yourself out of the dark place and you're building yourself up, okay, what is something small I can do today that's going to bring me towards the version I am trying to become? Right? That can just be even if you just do a 20-minute workout, or being outside, or eating a healthy meal, or, holding yourself accountable to going to a hobby or a class, right? Get things going that are beneficial to creating the future version of yourself, right? Keep that always in mind, even if it's small steps.
Speaking of workouts and healthy meals, why do we sometimes decide not to do the healthy option? So for example, yesterday I was really busy at work, quote unquote busy, because you can always find time to take care of yourself. I didn't do my morning workout. I feel like because I didn't do it, it set the tone for my day that I'm not taking care of myself. And the entire day I was in the worst possible mood. I also, my hormones are going all over the place because of my surgery and I'm changing birth control. But I was like, I cried for absolutely no reason. And I think, honestly, if I just went into the gym in the morning, maybe it wouldn't solve all of my problems. But so many times, like, we know that this is going to put us in a great mood. I know that if I go work out in the morning, whether it's just 20 minutes or if I journal or meditate, it's kind of like my checklist for the day that I did something for myself. But then sometimes I still consciously decide not to do it because I'm busy. But you are actually never so busy to take care of yourself.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because this could be a whole nother episode where we talk about hormonal
Maybe we're going to have another one.
I know. We're going to talk about hormonal health and us being cyclic beings. So I think it's important to hold ourselves accountable, as you said, to certain things that we know that make us feel better. However, we also have to be considerate about the fact that women are cyclic beings. We don't wake up with the same energy every single day. We don't have testosterone levels that are just wake up the same, right? We have cycles and phases. So there's going to be times where you have more energy and feel more called to do things and be confident and, do all those things. And then especially closer to menstruation, right? Especially the week before, Jesus.
And the week after and the week during. It's basically, we have 1 week when we're sane.
Exactly. Around ovulation. It really helps you to be gentle to yourself too, though, when you're just seeing, okay, my body, what is it that my body needs today? Rest, right? What would benefit me the most? So in your case, though, it seems like, okay, a compromise could be, I'm not feeling like doing an entire workout. How can maybe I'll just do a little Pilates class, right? Or something small to move my body and get the energy flowing and going. But also like finding that grace within, I think is super important. Sometimes I have that too. Like when I love eating healthy and nourishing my body and, being in a good place. Once I like really had that concept down, it's easy. But then I have days where I'm like, oh, like today, I don't want to work out. I don't want to eat, some chocolate on the couch. And I used to beat myself up because I would be in this perfectionist mode and be like, I can't do that. And I have to look good. I have to do this and this and this, where I started to give myself grace when I saw my body needed it. However, as you see, it's super important that we don't beat ourselves up and have regret about what we did, but say like, I am worthy of rest. I'm worthy of listening to my body and what's best for me in this very moment.
I absolutely agree with all of that. Question for those who are just constantly deciding to not eat healthy or go out and party. Like I remember when I was going through my phases, I was eating horribly. I was going out and partying all the time and I was drinking a lot. And it was just like I was trying to escape whatever problems I had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But, and thank God that I'm very self aware and I got out of it very fast and I had a therapist. But how does somebody, if they see that they're self-sabotaging, because I feel like that kind of behavior is self-sabotage. If you are consciously doing things that are making you feel worse and worse. I mean, I even have an example. My brother, he used to be a professional gymnast and he is very athletic and he just stopped going to the gym at like during the pandemic, I think that he stopped going to the gym. And we both had like conversations about like work because we're both like, on the same, we're both like athletic and we like to work out. And we were talking like, I don't understand why both of us, why are we just not going to the gym? Like, why? You just don't understand why. And yesterday I was speaking to him and he was like, I will never stop working out like ever again. Because now he's like back in his routine. He looks fantastic. And lucky for guys, their body snaps back in 3 seconds. So he's like buff. But what would you say to that girl who's listening right now, who knows that she is choosing not to help herself?
Choose yourself, right? Keep the eyes on the prize. Create a plan. And because plans to create a new habit can be incredibly helpful in the beginning, to remember why you're doing this, right? You want to be healthy. You want to nourish yourself. You want to live a long life. You don't want to have to take medication. Reminding yourself how important it is to be in tune with your body and nourishing yourself, I think is very, very helpful. Right. And then also, as you said, if it's someone who really continuously eats bad and just not is in the place of nourishing themselves or taking care of themselves, is seeing like, am I trying to cope here through having unhealthy food? Like, is it comfort food? Is it making me feel better or worse? And, like, how can I find a replacement behavior for when I'm trying to do unhealthy habits, if that makes sense, right? Like finding replacement behaviors is so important. So you don't just feel like, okay, I'm just not doing it, but you're still doing it, right? Just finding a different replacement for it.
I heard this story about, there's this guy whose podcast I really like. His name is Stephen Bartlett. And he was talking about his dad who was addicted to cigarettes for, I don't know how many years, let's say 20 years. And he was only smoking inside of his car. That was like his little routine. He would go into his car and he would have, I think it was like a glove box, and he would keep his cigarettes in the glove box. And it was just like muscle memory. He would sit in the car, he would open his glove box and light up a cigarette. And that was just his vibe. And then one day he read a book that Steven accidentally left at his place. I mean, it's a long story, but I'm going to try to sum it up. He decided he's going to stop smoking. But as you just said, he needed some kind of replacement behavior. So he stuffed that glove box with lollipops. So every time he would sit in the car, he would take a lollipop instead. And it worked. And he stopped smoking.
I love that. That's a great story.
I just found it so fascinating because it does, because sometimes most smokers, they just like that actual, how do you call this? The motion of smoking, like taking a puff and cigarettes left and right. I used to smoke when I was in college. I thought I was cool, but it just literally replaced that behavior. And you're still getting that, the muscle memory, you're getting inside, you're taking something and you're putting it in your mouth.
Yeah. I think that's a great example. It is so important to find, when you start a new habit, to find replacement behaviors. As you said, with diet too, okay, instead of, eating a pack of chocolate when I'm feeling uncomfortable or the discomfort, I have to eat a healthy meal first. And then if I still feel like it, I can still eat some chocolate, right? Like step by step. You can still eat chocolate. Obviously, there's nothing, exactly. There's nothing I don't allow myself to eat. But it's about, okay, how about something healthy first, and then you can still have some chocolate, right? So just building that up. Or like one of the things that was such a game changer for me that I started a couple of years ago. Instead of scrolling in the morning, my plane stays on airplane mode. My phone stays on airplane mode for the first time of the day. But I replaced it with reading. So in the mornings, it's non-negotiable for me. It's first thing, instead of scrolling, I'm just reading a book, which is great. It has been so amazing. So just finding like healthier replacement behaviors is such a key when you're trying to become a better version of yourself.
I love this. Jenny, can you please tell everybody where they can find your content? I love your Instagram. I love watching your videos, and it's a lot of self-love and just like stepping into that feminine energy, which we can definitely have like another hour conversation about that. But please, I would love everybody to follow you.
Absolutely. I love having ladies on my page. My Instagram is at Jenny Meinen. So JennyMeinen. I love connecting with you guys there, and always welcome to have a bigger tribe. And as Coco just said, I have a lot of content around self-love, relationships, mindset work. So a lot of things that we touched today too. And yeah, I can't wait to connect with all of you.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Jenny, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for listening to the Bougie Best Friend Podcast. I'll see you next week.